This is a regular meeting of the Public Works Committee to the RTM. This is a joint meeting, at least for the first portion of the meeting, with our friends and colleagues in Finance and Budget and in Public Health and Safety. I don't know, Jack, do you want to kick off? Do you want to kick off your portion of the meeting as well? And I'll.
All right. We can call this meeting to order because we have our quorum.
Oh, perfect.
Hey,
Yeah.
well timed.
It wasn't me.
And for those who can't see, Jack, that the we is Finance and Budget Subcommittee to the RTM. Matt, you want to kick off?
Yeah, Mark. I'm Matt Patrick, Chair of Public Health and Safety. You have a quorum.
Excellent. So the first two items we're going to cover this morning, or this evening, sorry. Tells you how my day's going. Are two resolutions relating to, oops, I'm on the wrong minute. There we go. Two resolutions relating to bonding authorization related to a sanitary sewer project, and then the second one we're going to cover this evening relates to a bridge replacement over on Hanson Road. And to help us go over some of the background on each of these two projects, Public Works Director Ed Gentile is joining us. Ed, thank you for making the time to join us.
Not a problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, with nothing else to cover, Ed, if you could just give us a thumbnail sketch. We're going to go over the sanitary sewer project. That project was first looked at, I know, by Public Works Committee back in 2022 or so. There was a little bit of a review done at that time. It's evolved a little bit. If I can ask you to give us just the three committees an overview of the project, sure, and then why it's before us today for this resolution.
Not a problem. Thank you very much. Ed Gentile, Director of Public Works for the town of Darien. I'll start with a very, very high level so you can understand how we're getting down to the spending of the money now and the rehabbing of the sewers. But back in 2019, we hired a consultant. That consultant was asked to come in here and evaluate our sewer system for what we call I&I, or infiltration and inflow. What that is groundwater, rainwater, surface water that's getting into our sewer system that we're actually sending over to Stanford and paying to have treated. And if some of the numbers that were coming in early on, of the 800 million gallons we send per year, about 50% of it was I&I. And we pay the city of Stanford almost $3 million a year to treat our sewer. So obviously an important project. Obviously, once we make this capital investment, the hopes is that we see a reduction in our flows to the city of Stanford, thus a reduction in the cost and money that we spend in our sewer fund. So right now, originally we came and we had asked for bonding of a little over $2 million. That original $2 million was to cover the initial engineering evaluation, if you will, of our system. Once that was all done, once they had finished looking at the entire sewer, doing night flow evaluations, smoke tests, see who had connections done, we were able to identify some areas that needed pipelining, if you will, or replacements of pipes. Old Kings Highway South had a pipe that was deterioration from the discharge of the pumps into a gravity line. It causes hydrochloric acid to build up in the pipes. What it did then was eat away at the concrete, and we had pieces of pipe falling in. So 3,500 linear feet that was one of our first projects that we did. Fortunately, we used ARPA funds to do that. If we don't have to use the bonded money, it was actually fortunate we could get it done so quickly. So as we go through this process, you'll see that the study was taken care of. It was about $700,000. We went after a 50% clean water grant, which we got, 55% clean water grant. We received that money, so it basically covered about $370,000 of that initial $700,000. So we've been doing our best to save money where we can, not use the bonded money, but we're starting to use the bonded money now. And to look forward, and now we've done phase one. That was Old Kings Highway, that was a pipe rehab. Phase two, now we're out, just started lining pipe yesterday. We did more today. We're over in Dickinson, Fitch area, Clock Lane. We're going to be moving to Hecker. We'll be over Mansfield area too, doing pipeline about 13,000 feet right now. And there's currently about 70 manholes we're changing out to watertight. So this part of this project is about $1.6 million. So 700,000, 1.6 puts us around 2.3. I'm pretty much used up my initial bonding. We have a phase 3 that came out of that initial engineering report. That's going to be, that's why I'm here to request more funds. That to cover the cover the cost of doing that rehab. And then starting phase 2 of the engineering evaluation. The phase 1 only did Stony Brook area, which is about 2/3 of the system in Darien. Well, now we're going to switch over towards the west side of Darien. We'll do the Hoyt Street area. We'll do the Seagate area. Areas that we know we have some issues with piping, inflow, and infiltration due to its so close proximity to the Long Island Sound. And other issues where we have inflow coming in from tie-ins and stuff.
Real quick, Ed, when you say you're doing lining, are you inserting physical lining? Are you spraying a lining in the interior? How is that, what does that look like?
The type of in-place cured lining is, it looks like an inverted pipe, a sausage, if you will. They shoot it through the pipe, cap both ends, this very simplistic, cap both ends, and they put heat, steam through the system and harden it in place. Then they go back and they cut out all the locations for the laterals so you folks can use your bathrooms and showers and stuff at the end of the day. They've been pretty successful, knock on wood. Haven't had many complaints. The complaints that we've been getting are we blocked a driveway or two, or we had to delay a lining for a day and inconvenienced a person. And those things are going to happen. We do apologize, but we try to get back out there and get out of their way as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Ed, could I just ask one follow-up question to that? What's the useful life of the lining?
I haven't heard of one failing yet, other than it was installed incorrectly. And they've been doing them for about 25 years now. And they've been getting better and better with the process. I have to assume, and Darren's going to be upset I didn't bring my show and tell, but we have a piece of liner inside. It is hard or harder than PVC pipe, an SDR35 pipe. You can't break it. You can bang the heck out of it, you can crack it, but you just can't break it. Since that's not what's happening in the sewers, I'm gonna stretch it out maybe 40, 50 years on these pipes.
Thank you.
It also depends on what we're getting out of those pump stations and those gases and how they attract it. But so far, there hasn't been any reports from other areas or other engineers where they've seen an impact from those gases. So I think we're going in the right direction. So with this additional bonding, it will cover the final phase 3, which is somewhere around 1.9 million. The second phase, our engineering, if you will, throughout the town. I have somewhere around 700,000. I will go after a clean water grant again for that. The grants only cover engineering work. They don't cover contract or construction work. Though they do provide you for financial assistance, 2.5%, 3%, or a point above primes. We, as a town, get better bonding rates than they'd be able to provide us. So as you see, it's basically addition to the initial bonding authorization. We do have one other item included in the bonding. It's closed circuit or CCTV work. It's cleaning and camera work. Part of our program over the last 3 years is we camera and clean and investigate 10% of our system every year. 81 miles, 10%, 8 miles a year. Usually takes us about 3 months, 2.5, 3 months. And all 3 years we found 1 or 2 defects that we had to go out and fix. Better to fix it while it's working than to find out and have to react to a break or a collapse. So that's what we've been doing with that money also. That's included in this bonding too. I think I touched on everything. Is there any questions? I know I went through it quickly and it's a little bit confusing, but sorry, Paige.
I'll defer.
Oh, thank you. Are there any new sewer lines and like attaching existing homes that are not yet on the town sewer and septic on this particular item, or is this just fixing stuff that's not
This
working?
is just repairs to existing.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I was watching today the presentation that Arcadis made back in February of 2022, and that original presentation identified, to my recollection, 5 regions and a timeline that went spanning over a period of 48 months. Okay, now I know that the commission was anxious to try and do something sooner than that. So help me to get some perspective on that original plan and where we are today and how much more we have to go, referencing back to that original plan.
We were able to overlap the design process with the construction process. So as we were doing phase 1 construction, we were designing phase 2. That 45 or 48 month timeline was concurrent as you run it out. So we were able to, at the request of the sewer commission, tighten up our schedule. So what we're doing now will end sometime in November of this year. At that point, I hope to be bidding and getting contractors lined up to start phase 3. And it looks like phase 3 is going to take another year also. So we're looking at the end of 2025, wrapping up the initial engineering, phase 1, the 3 projects that they recommended out of that phase 1 engineering report. So we're going to be ahead by, I think, a year or so.
So how much in total were all those 3 phases? You said the first one was 2.3, right?
The bonding was 2.3, but it included a lot of different things. So of the 3 phases, we're looking at 1.9, 1.6, and almost $600,000. So you add those up, I know Ralph is pretty good at adding things up pretty quick. 4.1 million.
Yeah, that was what was in the original proposal.
Yeah, the total change to the original bond that we approved with the new addition is going to be approximately 4.7 in total. All right. And there is something, I don't want to cut Ed off, but just so that everybody understands, this is part of the sewer authority, which is why Ed is talking about the sewer commission.
Right.
The sewer authority cannot issue bonds. The only person who can, or the only entity that can issue bonds in a municipality in the state of Connecticut is the town itself. So the town is issuing the bond for the sewer authority. And then the sewer authority is in fact paying down what we need to do.
And-
So just so that you understand some of the entities here.
So
the
the sewer
specific-
users are paying the fees, the
Right.
taxpayers are not,
Right.
just so you
So
understand.
out of the 4.7 in total, which are the investment costs, you said we have about 3 million that we pay to Stanford every year, and you said you expect savings.
Mhm.
In what range are those savings, just to kind of understand in how many years will this pay itself back?
We're looking at maybe eliminating a third of the I&I that's coming out. with this
So it's
repair.
basically 5 years.
Probably a 5-year, 6-year payback. But understand, and a good question to how long the pipes are, these systems are going nowhere, the houses are going nowhere. So even if the payback over an extended period of time was 8 years or 10 years,
Yeah.
still a good investment. These pipes are not getting any younger. The systems are, because they're leaking more. So investment in the sanitary system, which I consider probably the most complicated system that we have, and investing money in it right now is very, very important.
And
also
the
risk
price tag of the
mitigation.
process
Yeah.
isn't going down either.
And
No, it's
just
not.
to add again, because the users of the sewers are the ones who's paying.
Right.
If anybody has seen or went into a home that has a sewer assessment, what you're really doing is paying your share of that hookup. So it's, again, we're talking about the sewer authority. It's still in charge of it. There's a sewer commission that does it. But we're talking about bonding, again, only because the town can do it.
Jack, on that subject of some of the households in Darien are in sewer, which I would assume is the minority. I don't know what percentage of households are on sewer.
No, I think it's the majority.
5,400 accounts.
Out of how many households?
7,200.
Okay, so it's more than half. Because I was looking on section 2, it said to meet said appropriation in lieu of a tax, therefore. So if there were a tax instead of a bond,
Right.
who would pay the tax? Would only people with sewers pay the tax?
Yeah, I do not know the exact answer to that question, so I'm not going to say what I think as opposed to what I know. But I tend to believe the users of the sewer are responsible for paying for their sewer usage, and that, when you get, there's an assessment that people get when you hook up.
Yep.
But every year, if you're on the sewer, you get a bill based upon your usage under $500, you got to pay it all at once. 1 penny over 500, you get to do it in 2 starches. But only the users are responsible for paying for the sewer system.
Jack, that's my understanding. When I read
But if
that language,
there's a-
I took that language to be standard language when we're doing an
Yeah.
appropriation,
Yeah.
and not to imply that a tax would be
Right.
the alternative.
It's in the other resolution as well.
It's in both resolutions, yeah, if you read both word for word. Hmm? It's
So Jack,
boilerplate.
so I understand. So if there's a bond, the town as a whole pays for it. If there's a tax, only people with sewers pay for it?
No.
Is that right?
The sewer authority, and remember, when we do the budget, we have some expenses that come down, and when you go to that last part that has all these other little things that we're doing appropriations for, the sewer authority pays the town back for the bonds that the town has paid. So the town and the taxpayers, general taxpayers who are not using sewers, do not incur a charge for this.
Okay, thank you.
So Ed,
I'm sorry.
oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. You were talking about the pipes near the sound being more expensive to fix. I'm just trying to, or I thought you said that when you said the ones in CD or something. And
They're more susceptible because of their close proximity to the low end of the sound.
Okay, but these aren't like the storm drains that are emptying out there.
No.
These are like
No,
enclosed.
these are the sanitary sewer pipes that are generally found in the roadway.
And they just get eaten away more from the salt water or something, or from the salt in the air?
Salt there, and there seems to be quite a bit of inflow of salt water to our system now. And we do have a major pump station at Seagate that seems to produce the gases that tend to eat those pipes a little quicker, which is one of the reasons we want to get down there and take a look at it.
Okay, thanks.
So you mentioned that, I guess about half of the flow we put to Stanford, so 300 million, so-called $150 million gallons is from I&I. These projects will eliminate about a third of that. That's all rainwater, stormwater. How is that going to impact flooding? Because that water's still got to go somewhere.
Yeah, and a lot of it is groundwater right now. So the groundwater is going to stay. It
In the
won't.
ground, okay.
Yeah, it won't go into the pipes.
Okay, so it's not rainwater flowing in, it's going to...
I'm not gonna say it's not, there's none of that, but every once in a while, we've come across one of those small driveway drains, and we found smoke coming up out some of those. And unfortunately, they happen to be misconnected to the sewer. So we go to the neighbor, or go to the resident, we ask them that if we can have them reconnected or disconnected. Some of the downtown businesses, interior piping, sometimes you find one or two that's connected. I think we found one downtown, so.
But that was one of the successes of the study that was done, is that it identified households or entities, I'll call it that,
Yep.
that were not properly hooked up. And so those who were corrected, which was part of what you did in the first study.
They're being corrected, but yes.
Yeah.
And the other thing I told us was, I thought there were more connections than we found. which told us that we had bigger issues with groundwater than we had with direct connects. Yes?
Richard Aponte, second district. Working for the utility company, I found out that the liners were fantastic. In California, they use them quite a bit. With all the earthquakes, the fracturing of the piping, the integrity's still there because it holds the liquid still in the line. So by doing this in some of the storm lines, it's gonna save us the money in the long run because if our old facilities are getting compromised, it is still holding the integrity together where it's not getting commingled. So we're able to save the money in that one, okay? I'm aware for the last 25 years that it's being done. In the natural gas industry, we use it quite a bit, and it's to save us from rushing out and replacing an emergency line. So it buys us a little bit of time. So that way we're not going and asking the Commission or any other entity for more money so we can do this upgrade. So it is a cost-saving measure. You feel the impact or you see it initially, but in the long run, it pays itself off.
Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of aid, are there any other possibilities? Clean Water Act, infrastructure bill, anything? Anything? No,
Bake sale?
I have,
The well is dry.
I have approached many, if you will, and been successful with a few. So the Clean Water Grant was successful. I've used about $1.1 million in ARPA funds, making sure the town spends that money. So those are my successes. I will continue to look. I'm not shy about going after money as long as it makes sense. There are some grants out there that come in, some 100%, some 50%, that have so many strings attached to it that it makes it very difficult and makes it even just as expensive of your own contribution, and it doesn't make sense to some of us. So just being careful with those.
Let me add something else. If a grant comes, we're doing an authorization that says that we can appropriate up until that amount. We're not going out tomorrow and bonding.
No.
We're waiting. So Board of Finance will be addressing this in their meeting on the 16th. They're just approving the appropriation that we can bond. Bonding may not take place for another year or two because we have sufficient funds in our general fund to be paying for this, and then it's a cash management issue. If in fact we get money back in a grant, we don't bond the full amount. That is deducted from the money that we're going to be bonding. And we'll see this more on the Hanson Road, that we're going to go for a full appropriation, but based upon the grant that's coming in, we'll do the final bonding once we know that final number is there. So anytime we're talking about the grant, we still have to appropriate the full amount, and that's part of why you're seeing things. But what we actually bond may be different.
And I think that's a good point, Jack. I probably won't be spending this money, start spending this money until May, June, July of this coming year. So this is just me getting ahead of the curve, if you will, and make sure the fundings are in place to keep these projects moving along, so that we don't stall.
I'll make a motion, we vote.
Second.
Well, are there any other questions?
There's one other point I did want to just raise, only because I have the financials here. There is about 20,000 of police time. I mentioned this to Mac and his committee, since they have public health and safety. But there is about $20,000 in phase 2 for time that we have to do, simply because I'm assuming that there's police who are doing certain tests that have to move traffic.
We follow all the guidelines that the police department has set up with regards to traffic safety and traffic management out there. There are times I'll use my own flagging guys from the DPW on side streets maybe, or dead ends. When we get on the post road or any state highway or any road that I believe is unsafe to have my guys out there alone, we've hired the police department to come and do traffic control.
I'm mentioning that because while you weren't assigned this, you may want to report on that.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. Are there any other questions anyone in the 3 committees has? I'd suggest we go ahead and vote. Public Works already has a motion and a second.
I have a second.
So you
All
guys vote that-
all those in favor to take the vote?
Okay. All in
Okay.
favor of this resolution? Thank you.
Okay.
Any opposed?
Motion, I have Lynn as the vote, I
Abstain?
have Bill as the
Unanimous.
second. All in favor of Article B, raise your hand. See that that's unanimous.
Okay, I'd like a motion for public health and safety, Rachel.
Like sledding dogs here.
Second. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Opposed? Abstaining? That's me. I have to abstain, I need to do with bonding. Morgan Stanley.
Morgan Stanley, just so you know, Morgan Stanley is not alone with that. When there are extensions sometimes on these votes, it's because we have somebody who's enacted. Just to support that.
Thank you, everybody. Ed, if we can address the second resolution, which relates to the replacement of the bridge on Hanson Road.
Jump right in? Okay.
I think all three committees are familiar with the Hanson Road bridge replacement. This committee certainly has been tracking it.
Sure.
Just a high-level overview.
Sure.
Why we're having the appropriation.
I'll take it back just a little bit, right? Give you a little background, July 2022, right? We found we had a defect in the bridge. We had a washout from under the west abutment, northwest corner. Crackings, we had sinkholes in the roadway that led us to under the bridge, then we found it. So at that moment, we brought in an engineer. We brought in a contractor. We got special permission from the EPC to do some hardening, if you will, of the existing abutment that was there to protect the roadway. I happened to know someone with a nice large steel plate, so we put that down on the road to disperse the roadway. Yeah. And with that said, we put barrels out there to keep the weight of all the vehicles away from that corner, if you will, and still leave the road open. And we've been successful. We monitor it every week to make sure that we don't lose anything or lose any elevation. As soon as we see that, then we'll go back and reevaluate whether we can keep that roadway open or not. But we've been very fortunate in the last, I hate to say this, it's been about a year and a half now. And we're just looking to bid this in this March, April. We have an EPC application to get through, and there's a couple easements that we have to tie up, but we're looking to start this in May and get this done before September 1st when school's open. The road will be closed. Some folks have heard we're going to close it for 5 months. I'm hoping it's not that long, but we had to go in front of the police commission and ask for a detour plan. We had to present that and put that in the bid package, so we had to go with something that we thought was reasonable, that we could live with. And I do believe that we will be finished sooner than the 5 months, or at least be able to open the bridge. Whether we're doing ancillary work on the stone facing of the abutments or things like that, I think we'll be able to use the roadway, but that's our intent.
Just for clarity, so it's no longer a through road, it's, when you say it's closed, I mean, obviously people that live on the street can still come and go, but you can't pass through it.
We're gonna provide the residents on Hanson Road with 2 dead ends, basically. And speaking to some of the residents that are right there at the bridge, I asked them to promise they don't ask me to leave it that way. Because I think they might, but.
And keep bumps off that road, since I use that as well.
I will do my best, but yeah, you won't be able to travel through from one side to the other.
Can you just talk, because we were talking briefly here, understand, this is going to be like the old cartoon, where if somebody is not paying attention and we don't put up the appropriate safety factors, they're going to be driving and go into a road. That's exactly what's going on. So, Ed, we'll have can you just cover some of the safety factors?
Sure,
that will be there
absolutely.
to protect us from ourselves.
I don't want to let Jack be right about the cartoon, so we do plan on putting Jersey barriers across the roadway. There'll be no way for you to drive through there. There will be openings for trucks to come in, because we'll be bringing in material, taking material out. We'll have large pieces of equipment, large excavators in there. Part of the plan is to de-water the area also, or redirect the water, if you will, while we're dropping these culverts in. So we're not gonna build this bridge like a normal bridge. We're gonna actually take large culvert sections that are 10 feet wide and lay them down in there. And the reason we're doing this is to avoid what happened just now, which is washout underneath the bridge abutments. So when we're done, though, you won't know how we built it unless you go into the pipe or into the culvert. Big, large concrete, like, it'll look like that doorway, basically, when you look inside it. But we're gonna face the outside abutments with stone, so it looks natural. We're not gonna use a standard WB guardrail that you see on the highways. We've been given permission by the DOT to use the wooden guardrails from the Merritt Parkway design, which I think is a plus. They've also allowed us to shorten the lengths of those guardrails, so the neighbors aren't impacted. We have 2 neighbors right there, and the third one is the Weber Country Club. They've been all very, very, very cooperative. They've had some concerns. We're addressing them as they come up, but and some good questions too. So we've been working closely with them.
To that point, I'll remind the folks in the room, was it a public hearing yet, or was it just an information session?
Public information center.
It was a great presentation. We covered everything Ed just went over in detail, and there were some neighbors there.
Sure. I think all 3 of them showed up. All 3 owners, or all represented, all 3 properties were there. So.
No, so again, and I don't mean to cut it off. Again, we're approving an appropriation for $2,067,000 plus change. Ed has applied, and I believe has been approved to receive a grant of approximately 50%.
It is 50% of our estimated cost.
So we don't know, so we're approving the total appropriation. In both of these, we have 10% contingency on the construction cost. So it's not as if we're worried about overruns. But when the final number is done, again, this number does include some contingency in it. It is submitted, I believe, in 18 months. It has to be submitted back to the grantor. And whatever the town receives, we will then determine how much of this will be bonded. So once we have the money, we're going to use the general fund to pay for it, about $1 million. We have the money in there. And then from there, the bond, and then it becomes the responsibility, once everything goes to market, for the Board of Finance to rescind the difference amount of what was authorized but not used. So that's just the mechanics of this.
Actually, Jackie, very quick. They actually have to rescind it if it's not used? It's a
They
formality?
should be.
Okay. Well,
We would hope they would.
rescind the authorization. Okay.
And by the way, just so that everybody knows, it's going to be discussed at the next Board of Finance, but something that was asked from the Board of Finance and F&B, there is an analysis that will be done on what our bonds are outstanding now, what we're paying down, what is authorized but not issued, what we anticipate the issuance to be, so that we have a pretty good idea of what our debt services be. And quite honestly, if you look at some of the executive summaries that we've gotten, and I'm going to credit Mark for this, because he's the one who first asked to do it a number of years ago. We do have on the bottom of each one of them what the anticipated debt service would be for the full amount on a 20-year bond. Now, we understand there's different mechanisms on how we do it, whether or not we're doing principal, front, this, that, the other. But so we have a rough idea that, I want to make sure, on Hanson Road, the estimated debt service, if we were to bond the full amount, would be about $70,000 a year incremental cost to us on a simple 20-year bond. But that's why it's important to start to look, because with the advent of what we're doing in the schools, you know, we're going to talk about HHR at our meeting, and this, that it's important to understand that there's work that still has to be done in the town, and some of that needs to be bonded, and we can't be telling Ed you can't do anything.
Appreciate that.
Thanks.
So I'm gonna, and Jack, thank you for that. I want to dig in just to the numbers so you understand what's being covered by this and where we stand with the estimate and the grant. Okay, so the local bridge program grant is 50%. You have to appropriate the entire cost, and it's a reimbursable grant. So in our preliminary figures and what we sent in for our application, we get to include the engineering fees, which is about $180,000. I think we may have bonded that for this project originally. So we're gonna get half of that back. So there's also right-of-way costs. Those are any easements that we do, and we do need some easements from the property owners. There's the estimated construction cost was about $1.5 million originally. Construction engineering, which is a construction management, inspection, material testing, all expenses during construction that you'd have an engineer out there. This one specifically will need one. Generally, I try not to do it if I don't have to. Between Darren and myself, we're more than capable of doing inspections on construction. But because this is a reimbursable grant, you want somebody there doing the books every day and making sure that you can finish those books, close those books, get them into the state, reviewed, and get your money. And that's the most important. That's the part that takes the longest. So this is money well spent. And then we do have, like Jack said, a 10% contingency. That number now totals into 2.042 million. And half of that we got approved, 1.21. So where we are right now, this preliminary estimate has been gone and approved. We do have to submit a supplemental once we get better numbers, and we'll get a opinion of probable cost just before we go out to bid. We will have to submit that to the state, or we lose our opportunity to get the grant. That's the process they ask us to follow.
Just one other little thing that I should have mentioned. You heard what Ed said his number is. You will always see a slight difference from what the cost is to what the bond is, because there's costs to issue the bond. And that's what we're going to be appropriating, is the cost for Ed to get done with what he needs to do, plus the anticipated bonding costs. So that's why, if you're looking to wait, we're slightly off. It's not that we're just appropriating more money so Ed has a little bit of extra on the side. It's that we got to pay for bond counsel and bond issuance.
Is that going to be broken out somewhere along the line?
It should be in the bond counsel resolution. It's very important, just so that everybody here knows. The resolution that we need you all to look at, and we're having two, so it's a little bit confusing. We get one from town council, and that's a nice resolution. But in order to be effective, we need people to be looking at the bond council resolution, which I believe I've sent to both committees. That's part of our job, to make sure that you have the right resolution. The Board of Selectmen voted on the bond resolution last Monday, and the Board of Finance is doing that on the 16th. But so that's more detailed analysis of what's there. But typically, it's like $5,000 to $10,000 that we're in on some of this.
Thanks,
I'll
Jack.
have that for our report.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone on the three committees? Roll.
The opening where the water flows in, does that stay the same as was the bridge that failed?
No, we had to widen it.
Why?
Yep.
By a lot?
I think it was originally 15, I think it's 17 right now, or 18, but the design through the hydraulics portion of it requires you to do certain things. One of them is provide a foot of freeboard underneath the top of where the water could hit. So we are not increasing any flow downstream. We are now making just more efficient and meeting the criteria for the DOT and FEMA.
So if it's the same volume, wider stream flow would reduce the velocity of the flow and reduce the scour.
It would. We are also required in the bottom of this culvert to put stone for a natural bed, and we have to design them scour-proof, which they may weigh a little bit more than you think they would.
Well,
it'd be larger.
It'd be like the riprap that we talked about.
Yeah, 12 to 15 inches in diameter.
The riprap.
It's the technical term for the crap at the bottom of the splash pool.
Are there any other questions? Great. Ed, thank you very much. You're welcome to stick around while we vote.
Oh, I want to see the vote.
I'm not going anywhere.
I've waited all day for the vote.
Absolutely, Ed. Public
I
Works.
think we need
Oh.
to speak that your day's too easy if you're sticking around.
I'd entertain a motion for resolution appropriate. Do I have a second? Frank?
Be honored to.
All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Oh, Richard, did you vote? Okay, unanimous? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion from F&B. I have Louisa and I have Beth second. All in favor? It's unanimous. You guys.
Public health and safety, a motion? Lois, second. Tom? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, so public health and safety and us have to have a motion to adjourn, and then we're all going to help increase our steps for the day as we go to the Mather Center so that we can deal with the fire engine. And then,
I don't want to interrupt you, but before I leave, before I know there's a mass exodus, I want to thank all you folks really for meeting all together like this. It really does make my job a whole lot easier. And I'm saying it once, and I'm saying it consistent. And like I said, I don't mind the hours if this is the way to move these projects along. We're all together asking good questions. Again, thank you very much.
I have a motion to adjourn. I have Lynn, I have Beth. All in favor, let's vote.
Well, very good. Well, welcome back. Thank you. I don't know if there's, do you know the folks on the committee? You want us to do a brief introduction? We did this the first night. Well, I'm Mark Adeletta. I was off. I was on Public Works, off for a couple sessions, 2 sessions. Now I'm back. Why don't we just go around this way?
Yeah.
Brief introduction.
Jeff Hudson, been on the committee for a couple of years now.
Rolf Hoban, been on the committees for 4 years.
Bernardo Mittler. Been on it for the second time now.
Ian Laird, this is my second year here.
Vinnie Arganville, I'm in District 2 with you.
I'm Caroline Luz, and I think this is my third year, but aren't we?
Are we third year? I lose track of time.
Just
You're
starting
fine.
the third year,
Right?
but like second session.
Yeah.
Pat Barr, second year.
I'm Frank Edelman, I'm a lifer.
Because no other one.
I'm just a Mark Adeletta stand. District 6.
And you are?
I'm Richard Aponte,
District 2.
District 2. And this is my on and off third term.
Okay.
I'm Paige Christ. This is my third term on RTM and on Public Works. But
Patrick Kane, District 1. I think this is my third or fourth year. On this committee.
Very good. Thank you. So everyone has the agenda. I don't know, did you get the agenda forwarded to you?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for springing it on you the day
that's
before, but very good. So we're just going to pick up the agenda right where we left off after the 2 resolutions. The next item on the agenda is an item that we usually do on our organizational meeting. We're a little late to getting to that this year, but it's, as you know, in past years, we've had what I call focus areas for fear that if I call it anything else, it might be deemed a committee. But it's all it is there's different topics that this committee historically has covered, and there's certain topical items that are perhaps warrant covering now that don't consistently need covering. So I'm going to ask tonight if folks have areas that they're interested in. I'll go over some of the ones that we've done in the past that are old standbys. And if you're not ready to commit to one tonight, we can pick it up at next session. But the idea here is, instead of all of us trying to track everything that's going on that might or is related to Public Works, we divide and conquer. Either because it's an interest area that you may have, or perhaps an experience or a skill set, or simply you've been following it for so long that you're a natural to do it. So that's the idea. I'll just rattle off some examples, and then where I'm going to go with this is the quickest way to do it, I think, is if you were covering one of these areas last session and you want to stay there, great, that'll probably knock off a few of them, and then we'll fill in the gap from there. But that's just a suggestion. Where did I put it? Otherwise, I'll do it by memory. Here we go. I had it right up front. So a new one I'm going to add, we'll start there, is GIAC, which is the Great Island Advisory Committee, which we didn't have last year. But
Seeing as how you're on the committee,
Seeing
why
as how I'm on
don't
that, it would be helpful to be reporting on the same topic to the RTM, to rules, to this committee, and everyone else who's.
We should have somebody else cover it, just so you know.
Throw me off my game, right?
Come on.
So I'm going to add that one, and I will cover that, and anyone's welcome to join me.
Mark, if I may ask, besides your involvement on the RTM with the Great Island Committee, why did you believe that this was germane to Public Works?
Sure, because as of currently, in its current form, the work that's being done on the island is being done by Public Works as a town asset. And there are items that are being done regularly that, well, I'm tracking them already, so it's very convenient for me to just report on it if they rise to the level of something that's material. But should it be tracked? Probably, until it falls under a different purview or jurisdiction, perhaps. But for right now, we do have, and I'll entertain this, we do have historically a person or a team covering town buildings. It could easily have gone under that, and we can certainly, if this group wants to do that, just lump it under there and have whoever covers.
Too big.
Well,
I think
but I'm open to
it. It's too big of a
No,
project.
but you hit on what I was thinking, is the fact that it's a town-owned property. And to my understanding, Public Works is responsible for the maintenance, upkeep, management of town-owned properties.
Town-owned property not under the germane or jurisdiction of Board of Ed
Or
Parks
Parks
and
and
Rec.
Rec.
Yes.
To be clear, or FD, I guess.
But I would also say a lot of the work that needs to be done there is not just buildings, right? We've got to put in roadway, we've got to put in sewer.
Well, right now, a lot of it is in the nature
It's
of tree work,
infrastructure right
cleanup,
Right.
managing the landscape.
But my point is, it's not going to fit
Snow.
neatly into one of the boxes. It's going to cross
Yeah.
them all, which is why I think it's worth keeping as a separate.
But Ralph was really where I was coming from. It's a town asset. I didn't get that granular, frankly, as to what it was. It's a town asset. But we can lump it if the committee feels strongly, we can lump it under buildings.
I think it
Do we
needs
know
its
what
own
Parks
thing.
and Rec thinks about it?
Well,
Whether
that's
they
not really
feel-
what we cover here, is it?
Screw those guys.
But-
I'd like to join you on that.
Oh, okay, here we go. Got it, okay. So I'm gonna rattle off the ones we had last year, and then I'll come back around and see if folks who are on it want to stay on it. So actually, we'll go right to it. Town building, which is operational issues related to buildings. This isn't budgetary, this is items that pop up related to the buildings. Pat, you were on that last year, Rohit was on that, and, both Pats were on it, Pat and Patrick. You guys interested in staying on that, or?
Sure.
Don't do-
Let's go through the list. Not that I'm not interested.
I understand, so, okay.
Pedestrian.
Okay.
Right.
We did have Great Island actually last year, so my bad, and I wasn't even on it. Okay, well, Eric and Patrick,
I think
you were on
because
that.
you were,
I was on budget.
well, right, and you weren't assigned to that till later in the year, and these
Yeah.
were
Yeah,
assigned at the
this
beginning
is-
of the year, and
Yep.
then we had voted you in later
Okay.
in the year, so.
Yep, okay. So, we did have Great Island, we had Eric, and I think you were on that. Okay. Coastal Waters, that was Vince and Jeff.
I'll do it.
You'll do it?
I'll do that again. It's very related to Great Island.
It is.
It's nice.
It is.
That is the coastal.
Now, this one's interesting. Sustainability Environmental, we'll call it the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Paige, you were on that, and Carrie was on that. And Rolf, you passed along some information, which I think I'll introduce here. relating to, there's a couple of vacancies on that advisory committee. And historically, well, I won't say historically, there was a period of time when that committee was first formed. Back then it was called I think it was called the Recycling Committee.
Yeah.
Way back when. Public Works had a representative on there. If I'm recalling correctly, it was an ad hoc rep. It was a non-voting ad hoc. I always enjoyed it. I was that person. At that point, a lot of the activities that they were involved with related to the recycling facility, AKA the dump. Their mandate has clearly expanded, but if there's an interest in this committee in either participating on an ad hoc basis or being that there's a vacancy, if we would want to explore possibly being named to that committee, that's something I'd be interested in getting your thoughts on.
Potentially.
They had two people just recently announced that they're going to discontinue being part of that group, one of which is the chair.
Right.
So, I can't remember her name.
My only trouble is
Okay.
they always meet like at noon on a weekday.
Yeah, they
It's,
do,
like,
they do meet a lot
During the
on
day,
a weekday
yeah.
during the day, that's true. It's my recollection that almost all of those meetings are virtual.
Yeah, they all have been virtual, which is, I guess, helpful, but if you
But a
have a
lot
full-time
of their,
job, that's
a
kind
lot
of
of their
hard to.
time is preoccupied with the whole Connecticut, I forget the term of the exact movement, but it's to make the town more resilient.
Or resiliency, that they
Right.
moved into that
Yeah.
area? Okay.
So that they're, each, I think it's every 2 years, they reapply to meet certain criteria to gain certification. And there are various different levels of certification with WestCog. A lot of this is coordinated through WestCog. And a lot of their time is spent because depending on what level of certification you're going for, it's a very involved, detailed undertaking and can also be quite time-consuming. And
Which is
I
probably why they have vacancies.
well, I think.
Sounds like you're selling it there, Rob.
Well, I'm just putting out the facts, so to speak.
No,
Okay?
R-O-L.
Yep, I got it.
No, I have other interests. But I think they're looking for more clear direction from the Board of Selectmen because they are an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen. So I think they're trying to have a better understanding about what their true role is supposed to be.
Right.
Okay, because there's that, and then there is the recycling center, which they're involved with, but they don't really have any authority over the way the swap shop is run. Okay, and Ed Gentile was in that meeting as well, and he made it clear that I, in Public Works, do not run that recycling, or whatever, the swap shop. He has none of his personnel involved with that. It's an independent setup, okay? And so there's a number of questions that I think are going to be subject to review, and I think they're going to take it to the Board of Selectmen in the near future to get clarification in that regard.
So why don't we, I suggest maybe we leave it this way. Definitely should have one or two individuals
I'm
covering
happy
that
to follow
topic.
all of this.
Yeah, there's a lot going
Yeah.
on there.
And
Happy
to the
to
extent
follow.
there is a vacancy or two, I can explore whether or not it would be, if there's an interest.
It would
Yeah,
really
the-
depend on the time
having someone
for
from this
me,
committee on
I
that.
don't know if I can.
I mean, normally if there's a vacancy on a committee like that, the Board of Selectmen would reach out to the town, the Republican and Democratic town committees and
Yeah.
ask them to fill the spots.
Yeah,
Correct.
So I
that's
guess
correct.
the question is.
But if there's an interest, I
But we
would
could-
I would
Of course,
want to
yeah.
escalate
If anybody
that.
here has an interest to
That's all.
go
Yeah.
for it,
Awareness.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
coming up.
I'm sure they'll take any willing hands. I'm just trying to think.
But coming from this committee, you've got a little bit of an orientation,
you
especially
might
if you've
have-
been in this, involved for a while.
For sure.
An edge, so to speak. Yeah, the name of that whole program is called Sustainable CT, is what it, if you look it up on the website, okay,
Right.
Sustainable CT. And part of it is also to help get funding for different things moving towards resilience and sustainability for the town, okay?
Right, and reducing how much waste we send other places, because
Yeah.
it's expensive.
But there are a lot of things to get certified, a lot of it, you know,
It's a very document-driven process, as I understand.
yes, a lot of documentation.
Again, you guys are selling it.
Yeah, I know. You want to know what it is before you get involved, you know?
Well, as far as covering.
Yeah, I'm happy to cover it still,
Okay,
absolutely.
anyone interested or willing to join Paige on that?
You're out.
Don't all raise your hands.
Well, we're gonna catch folks on the second round through. This is your chance to get something you're interested in. Second time through, you get what's open.
I will be.
Moving on to flooding, always a popular one. We've got a wealth of talent in this committee as it relates to the flooding topics. Last year, we had Pat, Parr, Rolf, you were on it, and Ian, you were on that. If any of you are interested in staying on that, just let me know, and we'll go from there.
I'll stay.
Yeah, I'll stay.
Okay,
I can stay too.
you can stay too, okay.
Well, unless someone
Well,
wants
if
to.
it's overloaded,
arm
then
wrestle
we'll
before, it's fine.
relook at
It's a
it.
wealth of talent, we'll come back at that. Interesting, municipal waste facility, recycling centers. Oh, it's the same too, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're listed twice, I don't like that. Dams and bridges, that's infrastructure really, but dams and bridges is how I categorized it, which was very topical last year with this Hanson project and with Rings End.
Yeah, dams,
Rings End
bridges,
Bridge.
and cul-de-sac,
Rings End
culverts, right?
Culverts, yes.
Yeah.
Jeff was on that, just Jeff?
Really?
You cover a lot.
I covered a lot. Which guy?
Yeah, you, Jeff, or the other?
No,
Jeff
no,
Krause
the
or
other
Jeff
Jeff.
The other.
Because if it was
Oh,
me,
yeah,
I did a
that's
damn good
right.
job.
I thought Jeff.
Hudson, Hudson, that's
Did I?
Hudson.
That's
Oh, hide it.
I'll do what I did last year.
You were so effective.
That was perfect.
Well,
Sure.
Might need some support on that one. If anyone's interested in helping Jeff, enhance that.
Or overseeing it.
Yes. Hey, we need a manager for Jeff. So, all right, so if anyone's interested, just, let me know. Sewers is covered.
That's good, that has been for years.
Frank, and actually Vince, you were on
Yeah,
that
actually, Vinny
as
was,
well. Frank, you want on or off? You're on two already.
Okay, I'll stay on.
Stay on? Okay, yeah, that's a hard one to leave.
It's a hard one to leave.
Hard to get out of the sewers?
Roads and sidewalks. We had Carolyn, you were
I was
on
on
there.
that. I'll stay
and
on
Ian.
Yeah, I was on
Okay.
that, I'll stay on
That was an active one indirectly with the SAIC. Anyone else want to support on that? That's picking up where we left off on pedestrian infrastructure is later on the agenda. Okay, so the two of you will stay on. And now finance and budget. It was Jeff Krause and myself on that.
I'd just like to bring up that Jack seems to be with the Appendix B that still is not
Still-
come out to the RTM.
But it hasn't gone away either.
Well, that's good to know.
It's lingering.
Okay,
Okay, no, it hasn't
lingering,
just
but
disappeared.
It hasn't disappeared, but it's been pushed back.
Yeah, the agendas the past couple of RTMs have been pretty chock full of
Yes.
stuff, and that's one that's gonna.
I understand,
This is
but
last
I think there was a realization it wasn't ready for, wasn't ready to go to the floor yet. There's
Yes.
still some,
yes, there were still some questions.
yes,
In fact, I raised a
you
question.
did raise
that
one.
might have been related to that, but I don't know. But anyway, but Jack, I think, made it, somewhat clear that within the Appendix B, when it comes out in its new version, that he's going to be looking to the committees to be more independent in analyzing and reporting on the budget.
Yes.
That he's not going to go in depth per se as much as the Finance and Budget Committee did in the past.
That's part of what's
And that they're
embedded
gonna
in
be
that.
looking more towards the individual committees to report on their, whatever, related budget, in our case, Public Works. And so, that I think should be taken into consideration as we put out the assignments, because I think that's Jack's posture. So, we in effect have to be prepared, I think, if I understand it correctly, to put together, in essence, our own little report on the budget that we would submit.
And Ralph,
of
that's
course-
exactly right.
And that would cover various different areas, roads and sidewalks, sewers. Well, sewers are separate from the town.
They're separate, but still we have to do it.
But it's still something we report on. We also report on the parking, okay?
Parking. committee,
Okay,
or parking fund.
And all the other parts of all the public works.
Not
Plus
necessarily
capital.
about putting together the budget, but it's like analyzing the budget.
Yeah,
This is
I would
put
call it
together.
more reporting on the budget.
Right.
I would suggest that this committee's actually been fairly diligent about doing that.
I was just going to say
To
that.
date.
I think in the past, certainly since I've been involved,
Yes.
this committee has always had,
Yeah.
you know, pretty,
Since I've been.
Valid.
well, no, not. Good catch, Mark. No,
That guy
it's
before you.
it's always produced a fairly detailed report.
So, no, I agree with you. That's where I was.
That zipper one.
Well,
That's where I was going with
I
this.
appreciate
So-
what you're saying. I'm
Yeah.
just pointing out the fact that we're going to be looked to more so than even before, that's all.
That-
all
Well,
I'm trying to
this
say.
committee's always been pretty buttoned up.
Believe it or not.
So with that all in mind, it was Jeff.
Well, we have a new member here who was
Yes.
prior,
Who was
I've
counted as-
I've been on
the
F&B
finance and
several
budget.
times,
Yes.
so I'll take it and
And-
deal with it.
Okay, that would be tremendous.
well, I think we'll all work, in concert together to put the information.
Yeah, you
I'll
have to
just say
deal
you
with Jack.
don't want me to be
That's
able
what I
to
mean.
find
Well,
it.
and historically,
Yeah,
you know,
of course,
past
I
several
need,
years,
you know, the help
we've
here.
liaised, we liaise with our
They will
counterpart
be-
on F&B. You're
Jack
familiar
and I
with how
know
it
each
works.
other
When I was on
for-
F&B, I liaised with this
And the
group.
people there know me as well.
Yes.
I'd be
And will that
happy.
help?
Correct.
Okay, so we've got 3 there.
That is correct.
Who are the 3, Mark? It's you.
Me, Jeff Kraus, and Werner. Okay, so that doesn't have, those are the committees or the focus areas we had last year. Open to any other areas that folks think warrant coverage, or if you haven't been placed on one of these areas and want to be, let me know now. You can let me know offline, and I'll add it later. But we've got coverage, at least initially, to keep things moving.
Is anyone not here today that,
Yeah, we have
Rohit.
folks.
Rohit's not here.
should we assign them? Some really
Exactly.
fun
They get
stuff.
You don't show up, you get
Yeah.
assigned.
You know.
We can add them.
I'm just
I can reach out to them.
Okay.
Don't take it the wrong way, but I'll take the dam and bridges.
No, absolutely.
Take the damn-
I'll take the damn bridges.
Dam, bridges, and culverts.
Bridges and culverts.
Culverts, okay. Yeah,
Culverts too.
a little more bench.
Infrastructure,
And
I guess.
abutments. And abutments.
Thank you. Rich, you go by Rich or Richard? Pick one. 'cause
Either
that-
or, Rich is fine.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not going to belabor that. We've got at least a way forward, and anyone not assigned or not here, we'll take care of between now and next meeting. Next topic on the agenda is PIAC. PIAC. So, I wanted to pick up on it because we sort of ended with a bang last session, making a, what was it, a motion.
Should we tell Rich what PIAC
I'm not
is?
saying I
if he
read it
doesn't know?
clearly. I don't know.
Okay. Frank, I'm gonna let you kind
I was
of,
waiting for him to.
Yeah.
or someone who was involved in that effort
Sure,
last
so
year.
very quickly, the Pedestrian Infrastructure Advisory Committee, PIAC, was formed in 2015 at the urging of the Public Works Committee. This was a committee that reported to the Board of Selectmen, and they did a report on pedestrian infrastructure, meaning sidewalks, bike paths, everything that's not motor vehicles. We, as a group, decided last year, as part of our session, that we wanted to review how much the town had completed against that original PIAC report, and to decide how much additional work, like, benchmark how much progress had been made and kind of where do we go from here. And we found that that in general the town has done a lot of work, but not all of it necessarily aligns to what was in the PIAC report. That is, they've done a lot of sidewalk replacements, they've done a couple of new sidewalk constructions, and this is not criticizing the Public Works Group, they've been working very hard. But that we wanted to urge them to do more and to do more in line with that PIAC report. In my mind, that's around filling gaps in sidewalks in the network, because they have a detailed map of where the sidewalks are and where they aren't, for example. There's a plan separately, there's a plan on the table to have an integrated bike cycling route project in conjunction with New Canaan. I think they're waiting for some funding from Westcog. And there's a few other things that are potentially on tap, but we wanted to urge the Board of Selectmen to make this a higher priority, direct more attention, more resource, and more funding to pedestrian infrastructure, principally sidewalks.
And so last session, there was a group from this committee that went over all the old information, did the update review, and reported to the committee, and at the end of that, a motion was made, which I'm looking for, kind of summarizing the conclusions and making a recommendation, which is simply a recommendation, but it was a recommendation. I don't want to paraphrase it and get it wrong. I don't know if anyone has it.
Did we end up voting on that?
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
It got passed, if I
That
recall.
was
We
a
did.
really long meeting.
You're welcome.
So a lot of work went in, a recommendation, a resolution was put forward, and I wanted to bring it back up here in that we could have left it, I don't want to say hanging, but for this committee to.
When did we do that?
Hang on,
Last-
that was-
It was like one of the last meetings.
It was our October meeting, and there were definitely some open questions, but we did make a resolution, and we did vote in favor of it, and it did pass.
Yes.
So that, it was adopted.
It was a statement.
And it was basically urging the Board of Selectmen to take this more seriously, to appropriate more funding, and to provide more information about how they're making progress in line with the, against however they're gonna measure it.
Right.
Do they wanna measure by linear feet? Do they wanna measure by areas of town that they're addressing? Like, there's a whole bunch of ways they could organize it. Anything that they choose is fine. But we wanna know what the organizing principle is and then benchmark how the progress is going.
Exactly.
I think that's the gist of what we asked for. But again, some crazy person came up with a really long resolution that we then had to.
So, and I don't seem to have it in my package here.
It
And
probably
and
wouldn't
there wasn't
fit.
any
It
action
was like
necessarily.
Did you block it out too?
Well, I can't block it out.
Hang on, I probably have some
Roll
right
the
here.
Yeah. So there's no action or further follow-up necessarily for tonight, other than I want to give this group an opportunity
Okay.
that if there is some desire to do something more than what was done.
So we
Well,
passed
I
this,
think-
we passed this resolution.
But
What
we-
happens next?
Yeah, we didn't give it
That's
to the
basically what he's
selectmen, right?
saying.
Yeah.
We need to do the next
We
step.
need to-
'cause
All right,
then-
what is the next step? It's
Yes.
Well, it's to make it part of the budget process, to incorporate it more meaningfully into the budget process. And in a way, and again, I'm just sort of paraphrasing, I missed one or two of the meetings, but the point was to really correlate that 2015 original study and put it into action. And by action, that was put budget force behind it and/or prioritization by the Board of Selectmen to say, yes, we're going to do something by whatever measure they choose.
I think also as my neurons are firing a little harder now, I think we acknowledged that they had succeeded at some of the lower hanging fruit. So there were certain sidewalks that had deteriorated, there were certain sidewalks that had upgraded from, say, a macadam to a cement, but that there were key harder problems that needed to be solved that have not been solved. Right, and the one that always comes to mind is the north end of Hoyt Street, but there are half a dozen on our favorite hit list, right?
Like my house.
There was that stretch where you were walking your dog, is that right, Mark? Was it you?
I don't know.
Do you walk a
I don't
dog?
think so.
Yeah, yeah,
I
there
do
was
walk
a
a dog, but I don't walk him on the sidewalk.
Where
very
you had
often.
to go off the,
Where you had to
and
go
then
in the
cross
street.
the street.
I thought it was you, but maybe I'm
Is it
misremembering.
on, is that on Hollow Tree? Where was it?
Uh,
I don't know. And then there's the one by my house on the post road.
So again, without going
Yeah.
down the rabbit
Yeah,
hole.
without going
what
down-
the
yeah, let's
problems
not-
are, the resolution was
Yeah.
directing the budget process, directing the selectmen to direct the public works to tackle these harder problems and to put some time and resource against, look, if there are obstacles in the way of a sidewalk, let's figure out what they are and is there a way to engineer around it?
Okay.
But the resolution was passed, but it didn't go anywhere.
Right.
It
Right,
was just
so-
passed by the committee, now it needs to be relayed somehow to the rest of.
At the RTM or at the
Well-
Board of
Right, to the
Selectmen?
Board of
Well,
Selectmen.
what I'm hearing though from the
to-
committee is we'd like the recommendations and the follow-up to impact more directly the budget process. How that's accomplished.
Well, priorities
The
of
budget
the-
process is starting right now.
To be
It's
considered
underway
during
already.
the budget process.
Priorities of to work its way into the Board of Selectmen's priorities.
So let me elevate that to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
And then later on the agenda, but Ed is going to be here for our February regular meeting.
Oh, wonderful.
To do our regular budget session. It's in February. I invited him for January. This resolution came up relating to the bonding, but also there's a preference for him to come after he's put his initial thoughts into the town administrator and not ahead of that. But so he'll be here in February for our regular meeting. I'll plan to speak with one or more of the Board of Selectmen to convey what the resolution, but what the intent was behind it, in case it's not crystal clear.
If Ed is submitting his thoughts to the town administrator, do we want to share with him our resolution in advance of that?
He already has the resolution.
Okay, he already
Remember, it was
has.
attached to our minutes.
Okay, great. So he already
So Board of Selectmen already have it. All the chairs have it.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't
That was
just.
the reason we wanted to act on it back in the fall, because
Before
we
the
passed
new
a
budget.
resolution
It
now.
got
For the new budget
distributed.
cycle.
It's
So they
already-
have it, but
that-
we're not aware of what their feedback.
Doesn't
or
hurt to remind
response or
them that they
anything
have it.
is.
All resolutions go to them. And,
Great.
so,
get
Well, that's good.
round filed.
right.
Yeah,
Nowhere.
But it's no harm in conveying what it is we're thinking.
Stack.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
some follow-up action that could go with that, and we'll go from there. Okay. And then I had sustainability as the next topic. I think we already touched on that. I had brought that up, Ralph, in your email you sent to me regarding the 2 vacancies, so we don't need to cover that. I've got 3 or 4 items that aren't items necessarily, but just more of announcements or updates. But before I do that, are there any other topics that anyone around the table wants to add to the agenda?
I've got 2 questions.
Okay, questions or?
Okay, question number 1 is a constituent asked me, because they don't have town water and sewer on their street. Specifically, they're on Pilgrim Road. But how do they go about getting added into the town sewer system? And this particular constituent said, we'll pay whatever we have to pay. We just want to do it because a lot of their septic, I guess, are failing now. And that's very costly anyway. So if it's going to be costly anyway, why not put the money toward?
Oh, it's going to be costly.
Yeah, so
Either way.
I don't know.
Is there sewer
How to answer
service on the street?
I haven't a clue, but I didn't know if there was like some fancy map, like the,
Yes.
It's got a map.
Planning and zoning also has it, or
a
what's
fancy
it called?
map.
Planning and zoning, I believe, has it, and they have
Okay.
all the areas. As far as water, they could reach out to Aquarion, and Aquarion can assist them in seeing if there's a viable place where they could tap off of to bring the line in.
Well, they don't get water?
She said water and sewer, so I.
There's wells
just-
in town.
There's
So they got
wells, I
wells,
guess.
yeah.
Really? I
I'm
don't know where
on
Pilgrim, I
wells.
don't know where Pilgrim is. Where's Pilgrim?
Yeah.
I
Pilgrim
have
across
no
on the
idea.
Y. It's off of
Oh, really,
Holliday,
down
I
there,
think.
no water? That's surprising.
That is
Yeah.
surprising.
I'll tell you in a minute, I gotta Google.
But I think the question, because I looked at one of these things when we moved here as well, before I bought my house. And if there's no public pipes next to where you are, they ask you to pay
Yeah.
for all the piping that hooks up with the town pipe.
Wait.
Oh, no, it's
So
off
you
of
need to figure out how
Mansfield
far that
Avenue,
is
like-
away, and then there's obviously a market price for
Yeah.
each
Linear
foot,
feet, yeah.
linear foot that you have to
There's a
pay.
contribution of cost, that's what it's called.
But if
And-
all the residents on the street.
If all the
Right.
residents share in, then
Because
it's,
what they have to do is they have to offset that cost over a certain amount of years, so amortizing it in order to recover the cost. The more people that you're allowed to get on it, the better off it is to install.
Right.
Other things that come into contention is if they put it in the road versus the side of the road. Darien has a section that if you install more than 100 linear feet on a roadway,
Correct.
it is your responsibility to pave the road curb to curb.
yeah.
So that impacts the cost.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at $200 a square yard per,
Right.
to do something, the cost adds up pretty quickly, especially with the prices of oil right now.
Right, okay.
So it sounds like the way to start is for the water, reach out to Aquarian, right, the water
Yeah,
company,
and
and now
then
the sewer.
Probably Ed?
Sewer commission, probably.
Sewer commission.
Yeah, sewer commission.
Okay.
It's all on the website.
I feel like when I was first on the RTM, there were streets and areas being added regularly to the sewer.
There were some added, for
And I have
sure.
not felt that in a long time. so-
I wouldn't call it regularly, but I remember 2 or 3 different
Yeah.
neighborhoods. Those were long processes
Yeah.
that I caught the tail end of.
Interesting.
But there were whole neighborhoods that kind of went through the process, dug
Okay.
in.
And
split
to the
the
point, I
shoulder.
remember it being expensive.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not cheap,
Yeah,
but replacing your
that's-
halls, that's
exactly,
right, like if
that's
you're gonna
what
do
the
all of it
homeowners grapple
anyway.
with, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Were those your 2 questions, or was that
No.
1 or 2? Okay, what's the second question?
Does anyone know what's going on with the swap shop and why it's closing till April? Did we hear anything?
I haven't heard.
It is being closed.
You know who's in charge
It's
of the
closing
swap
January 15th and will not reopen again until April 1st.
Correct.
Okay, Ed, in his
They do that
Public
every year?
Works capacity, is going to be doing some work at the site to help, I think, reorganize the site
Didn't we
itself.
just do that,
Okay, in
though?
terms of the organization, I think they're, as I said, they've had 2 resignations. They'll be going to the Board of Selectmen. Those positions have to be filled. So that whole
Oh, this is
setup-
under sustainability, or whatever that committee is?
Yeah.
They go, okay.
Wait, so sustainability, they don't run the swap shop?
They don't run the swap shop,
that
but
is
they
affecting-
have a role in the swap shop,
Understood.
okay?
Okay,
So I think that's all,
tied together?
yeah, that's all gonna be a thing, if you will.
Volunteer
Okay.
bureaucracy
Okay.
at its best.
Amazing.
Well,
I can send around a link for their last meeting, because there was a significant
I'm
discussion
gonna have to
about
watch it, yeah.
personnel.
Mhm.
In fact, many of the same things that we discussed with them when we met with them
Okay.
back in, what was that, 2022? Okay, I'm sure many of you remember that, and those who are still on the committee. And many of those issues, I think, still are
I will
live.
dig into the
Okay.
last meeting then. Thank you.
So, all right, so does everybody want me to do that, send that around, that
That'd be
meeting?
great, or
The-
I'm sure I can
the
find it on
video
the town
link?
website too.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Thanks, Rob.
I just need, if you have an email address.
I've got it. I can-
You have it? Okay.
I'll send you everybody's.
Okay, okay. But yeah, that's what that's about.
Cool.
Okay, so I'll send you an email address for everybody. so
Yeah,
you can send it
yeah,
to us
I'll
now.
forward that on.
Great.
Okay.
Darien TV 79.
In the nature of other updates or just informational, I can't recall if the sidewalk on the south side of Heights Road was completed at our last meeting or not, but it is complete. That was one of the projects that we discussed, one of the sidewalk projects that was on.
Yeah, on Heights Road.
It wasn't done at the time.
Not at the time, but it
It's done
has
now.
since been done, yes. And that
And-
was something that I know was
That was
coming up,
long-
that's coming up
long
the
on the
hill.
list of things to
And
do, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
West Avenue.
I commuted 21 years, it wasn't there, so.
And then you move.
Yeah. So it's there now. The other project that has since been completed is the retention basin in Roten Heights Railroad Station. I think that might have been underway at the end of the last
Oh,
session.
yeah.
The big
Yeah.
dig.
Yeah, that's
project
been
was.
finally done.
Done. Yeah, I actually watched it a
Yeah.
little bit. I enjoyed
So now
watching
that
it.
water will drain into a whole cistern system that's underneath the parking lot. Okay.
That's another cistern that's under the parking lot.
That-
There's one under the new complex over there.
Right, there's one on the
And
new
there's gonna be another
complex,
one-
there's one under the commuting parking lot now.
Yep, and there's gonna be another one, from what I understand, from the design, a smaller one, in the new project, yeah.
Oh, the Palmer's
Palmer's
project has
now,
one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Oh,
a
it
lot
looks
of
like-
systems.
that's good.
So, anecdotally and in conversations with Ed, it's making a big difference. Has it solved it? No, the intention wasn't to solve it, but the storm, the size storm that it can handle now is
Bigger.
materially bigger. I'm not gonna pretend to know how much bigger, we'll know when we know, but, so that's done. Oh, and much of the material that was pulled out from there found its way intentionally over to the vacant spot at the old, what I refer to as the old senior center. I don't know what it's called now.
Oh, off Edgerton?
Behind Millis.
So for a while there, neighbors were
That was
calling
horrible.
because it was a huge mound. It
Piled
has
up.
since,
Oh, yeah.
it has since been graded. It's still pretty high. It's not for me to judge whether or not that's, you know,
I didn't
it's
know
the
they
right
put
grade.
that
And from what I understand, the intention is to seed it and keep it simple from a maintenance perspective. I've had some residents reach out suggesting other ideas.
I'm sure.
Well, not necessarily what to do with it, but a natural, I don't know, if natural vegetation versus something that requires maintenance. But from what I understand, I guess I don't know when the right season is to plant, but Ed's team plans to grass it unless someone makes a recommendation or suggestion otherwise. I don't know if it's spring or fall, he'll be doing that, but it's been just graded a little bit. And what else did I have? We talked about GIAC.
Did the committee have any idea what was going to happen with Darien Main Railroad Station? There's now a massive 2-year project to replace all the
Yeah, I
platforms.
have no
Yeah.
idea.
Came out of nowhere.
They're replacing,
They've been talking about that for a while.
Well, that's the thing. I never
But
heard
I
about
thought they
it.
were talking about New
Yeah,
Road.
that's been in the
Heights. I
planning
didn't
for a
Okay,
realize.
so they did Norotan Heights over a span of about 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ending about 4 years ago, because I was still, ending just before COVID, I think.
I think it spanned more than 2 years, because I was still commuting when that was
Well, they
going.
did
Yeah,
They
it
did it in
started
4
while I was still
tranches.
commuting. I haven't commuted in
Like,
10 years.
Northbound and southbound ends on the 2 sides, and each one of those, anyway.
Yeah.
It was a long.
It was a long
process.
Yes, it was.
Now they're replacing all of the
Platform.
platforms, but I think they're making them heated.
They're making
Yeah,
it
that's
heated,
right.
it's a composite material. I talked to one of the Metro
Yeah.
North guys
Yeah.
one morning about it, but
Yeah.
apparently it was approved by the Connecticut DOT I don't know, 2020,
Yeah.
and they didn't do the work.
It's been a
And now
while,
they're
but there was a
doing it.
long time for the design.
That's why.
It took a
Yeah.
long time to get the design nailed down.
Yeah.
Well, a big part of that was, I think the town was trying to get the canopies extended or something like
Right,
that.
which they
Yeah.
wouldn't
So,
do.
which,
That
But
didn't happen.
the town is paying for I believe it's 4 shelters to be part of the project.
right.
Okay.
Yes.
3 on the New York bound, 1 on the New Haven bound.
They had, on the north side, they had a depth problem, in terms of
Yes.
how wide the
The
platform
north
could be
side. So that's
to
the
do the canopies.
West Avenue side
The
or
pond
the-
side,
The
Pond
pond
side.
side.
Okay, yeah, West Avenue side. Okay.
Little Thai Kitchen.
Okay. But I mean, it's
Not
like a 4-phase project I read. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna take quite a while.
yeah.
Plus, they're gonna replace those elevators. Those elevators are just
Have those
terrible.
elevators ever worked for
If they
even
did, it
one
was for a
day?
short period of time. But they're gonna change the whole technology for those elevators, so hopefully they don't break down as
They're
much
gonna beam you
as
up.
they have.
Okay.
It'll be a little mouse.
So in the nature of updates, I was gonna mention that it's coming in February, I already did that. And then the one item we didn't touch on, and I don't have an update on, but I'd look, unless someone has an update tonight, for the flooding, folks focusing on flooding, an update on Corbin, the project and the salt box projects. I've not followed up on those since our November session. October, our last session. Don't know that there is any update, but I don't have one.
I haven't seen anything. I'm trying to think if anything was.
Well, they made a presentation
Yeah, they had a
Yeah,
meeting.
for the design.
Right.
Yeah.
That was.
Right, but that was prior to October.
No, that was just sometime in October.
It was in October,
Right.
that's the last.
Yeah.
That was the last update. I haven't seen
Yeah.
anything since then.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure that it was approved to go forward with the design.
And the ARPA funding was gonna be used for the design phase.
Correct.
That's where,
That's where we dropped off.
So.
so I have no update, but I figured I'd see if anyone else around the table did otherwise.
Well,
We'll
when
defer to-
when we have time with Ed, I'm sure you can give us some.
Right,
Update.
right.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested, I found the motion to the Public Works Committee
No
that
way.
acknowledges that many of the priorities of the 2015 PAC report remain outstanding. Urges the town and the Board of Selectmen to commit to addressing deficiencies in sidewalks, crosswalks, and all forms of pedestrian infrastructure. Recommends that the Board of Selectmen establish the second Pedestrian Infrastructure Advisory Committee, PAC 2, to include representation from multiple RTM committees and diverse groups in town in order to establish quantifiable goals, develop and share guidelines for project prioritization, and invest sufficient resources to plan and execute the pedestrian infrastructure projects.
Okay. So it's that second part calling for a
Thanks, Ross.
second committee.
Bravo.
It's more over and above.
Frank, did you
Yeah.
write
Yeah,
that
so
one up?
that's, so the.
Was that one
It
of
was
your
a,
masterpieces?
you can tell it was the product of committee work.
Yes.
Not just springing from the floor.
But the lack of recollection that we all.
It only took a couple hours to massage. It was fine.
So, I don't have anything else, if anyone else, if no one else
I
does.
motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Paige motions to
You already have your
adjourn.
coat on.
Second.
That was
always.
the motion.
Thank you very much for your time, and we kept that inside of 90
Good work,
minutes.
y'all.
so-
That's impressive.
Thank you, though.
No storm
Thank you.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Lovely.